Oh, this you crazy mother.
Welcome back to the MMA Mad podcast. I'm Jim Carroll. Here, Nick Rizner's here as well. He's in the back. In the back? He's in the States. You could call that the back. We got a guest today. Bit of a different guest. It's going to be a bit of a different podcast today. Normally, as you say, we're used to us having fighters and coaches, etc. But the guest today is one of us, as we could say. He works for MMA Plus now, I believe. Don't want to mess that up. His name's Andreas Georgiou. Andreas, how you doing?
I'm good, Jim. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm going to try my best to keep up to the standards of guests you guys bring on, so fingers crossed.
Absolutely, yeah. You just, I think Dale put it that you're just below Alistair Overeem in our...
I'll take that.
Well, it's been a decent week of MMA. We had BAMMA in the UK that, as we discussed on the previous podcast, we were at. So really, we plan to go over BAMMA a little bit. We won't go over it too much because I'm sure fans in the UK watched it or was at the show. Some great fights on that card. Andreas was there as well. I think so. Some of the standouts. Really, the first thing I want to talk about is some of the standouts of that card. Firstly, to me, one of the first fights, one of the early fights on the card was Regis Sugden. I really enjoyed the fight myself. Regis finished with a first round triangle choke. For those of you who know Regis Sugden, he's a kickboxer, so for him to finish by submission, it was very good for him. And he just looked like a savage. Did you think that, Andreas?
I'm a huge Regis Sugden fan. Maybe not for the fact that his gym is literally next to my hometown, but he's a fantastic fighter, as you mentioned. He's 10-1 in kickboxing. He made the transition over to mixed martial arts, and since then I can't fault him. He's been training obviously at Suggy's gym in Newark, renowned for their kickboxing, but also working on his grappling at Fourth Dimension with great guys like Judo Jimmy Wallhead and also Urban Kings with Jude Samuel. So we really saw that pay off in his triangle choke submission over Manuel Bilic, and I thought he looked excellent. Bilic did try and work a few subs of his own in the fight, but Sugden defended well and showed why he's a future talent at bantamweight.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I remember Bilic go. What was the early submission he went for? Was it was he trying to take an arm? I can't remember.
I think at first he went for an arm bar, then he looked for a heel hook, neither to success. So
yeah, that's it. As you say, he's training at Suggy's gym. Dean Sugden, I believe, is his dad and head coach. Dean Sugden was a champion ISKA kickboxer himself. Is that right?
Yeah, Dean's a very decorated champion now. Obviously, a coach at Suggy's gym. Regis and his Chad's father, and he's done tremendous work at that gym, and that's really been told with how Regis is doing in BAMMA and how Chad is also doing in the kickboxing world. Fighting on the main event later this year, and also just recently signed to Glory, competing in Dubai. So yeah, it's a fantastic gym, and Dean's a fantastic coach.
Yeah, sure. We're going to have a bit of a talk about Glory later in the episode, but yeah, as I say, Regis Sugden, first round submission at BAMMA. We caught up with him after the fight. Here's what he had to say. I spoke to him. Remember, it was a first round triangle choke. Here's Regis Sugden post-fight at BAMMA 18. First, I want to take you back to the training camp for this, if I can, Regis. You struggled with the weight, making the weight, but you did make the weight. How was it for you? How was the training camp for you? Was you mainly focusing on technique rather than the weight, or how did that go for you?
Well, it was just a few common errors, really, sort of like coming up to the weigh-in, and I'm not going to say it's my fault, but as part of a camp, we sort of like made a few mistakes, and like I was in the sun on my own when I should have been there with people pushing me back in, and when you're down your own, it is really hard to motivate yourself to get back in that beaming hot sun and sort of lose that extra little bit of weight. And it was only a pound when I got here, but it was a pound I didn't want to be losing an hour after the weigh-in at the end of the day. And this training camp has really been phenomenal. I mean, the training with Jimmy Wall has just been stepping up massively. I've been doing some rolling with Brad Pickett. I've been doing a little bit of rolling with Dan Hardy, and it's been a bit crazy. I mean, the past 2 weeks have really been mind-blowing for me, because got these former UFC stars and current UFC stars that I'm rolling with, and they're all telling me sort of how much I'm coming on and I'm looking good, and they can't wait to watch me on BAMMA. And that for me was the confidence boost I needed, and I've had that. And what have I got to worry about? People like that are telling me sort of how good I am when I'm just watching them on the telly sort of week in, week out. So
sure, because you've got a kickboxing background. How has been the transition to MMA? How has that been for you? As you say, you're rolling with some of the some real big names. Are you having to travel around to get this experience, or are you comfortable with your home gym?
Obviously I'm comfortable in my home gym, but at the end of the day, to be a good MMA fighter you have to train with different people, and my gym's always been a stand-up gym. I had a couple of sort of Polish wrestling guys coming through and sort of training for a little bit, but I kind of got to the point now where I've kind of not gone past that point, but I need something a bit more. I need someone to literally push me and sort of be driving me for 3 or 4 rounds solid, and some people, which is understandable, can't quite manage sort of to do that. And people I'm wrestling with at the minute, it's just amazing. I mean, I'm going up to Urban King's gym in London to train Legacy BJJ with Jude Samuels, which is where I've been training with Brad Pickett, and I've been training sort of Fourth Dimension in Long Eaton at Team Muffas with Judo Jimmy, Andre Winner, people like that. And Dan Hardy came down there, been down there the past few weeks, and training with people like that, I mean, you can't really do any wrong. I'm training some fast bantamweights as well, 2 brothers, Jack and Joe Young, and they're sort of putting me through a pace on a speed sort of level, and at the minute I've got everything I need, and I don't need anything more. I mean, I'm not even going to say it's going to get to the point where I don't need any of them guys, because I'm going to always need them guys, because at the minute they've caused me the problems that I believe that they'll always be able to cause, because they've all got different strengths in different areas, and I'm never going to overtake every single one of them at every single thing, because that's not right. You're never perfect at anything. This training camp, the training I've got going on at the minute with my dad, my brother, Jimmy, Ranjit, Wayne Kirk, who helps me out, Jude Samuels, I really can't go wrong. Can't go wrong.
Talking about the fight quickly, you landed some vicious knees up against the cage to start with. Was you trying to get him out of there early, or was you really comfortable cardio-wise to go the distance?
I can fight 3 rounds as hard as anyone, harder than anyone has before, and I truly believe that. And I mean, I'm not going to say I didn't get finished, because I did, because if someone sees, finish in 30 seconds in the first round, they're like, this kid must be good. Did you watch the video and your name gets about, and that's how to get about. And to get the triangle choke, people are going to look at that and think, we shouldn't have got a triangle, and they're going to check it out and they're going to think that can't be right. And when they go on it and realise they actually did submit someone, then they're going to be shocked. And it's a great place to be at for people not to know what's coming and what's going, because people always see me as a stand-up striker, and I'm far from that now. I'm way past that.
Well, really, just wish you the best of luck. You'll be back out in April, I believe?
April 25th on BAMMA. It'll be BAMMA 20, and I can't wait. I'm buzzing for it already.
Anyone you'd like to thank before we go?
All my training partners down at Fourth Dimension, Lego BCJ, Suggy's gym, my dad's gym, Wayne Kirk, Jimmy Waller, Randy Barrio, my corner team, Chad Sugden, my brother, and my dad, Dean Sugden. That's the most important, because he's the manager as well as my head coach, and he sorts out my strength conditioning, makes me able to do 3 rounds like I can, gets me doing 9 rounds on the bats, and that's what I need and that's what I'm getting. So
thank you very much for your time, Regis.
Nice, thank you very much. Cheers.
Okay, that was Regis Sugden post-fight at BAMMA 18. As I say, it was a great finish for him. He spoke about him rolling. I forget the people he said he was rolling with now. He was rolling with some real high-level people, and he says he's happy to show off his ground game. And do you think that's going to be something we'll see more of him in the future, and not just the kickboxing, Andreas?
Almost definitely. He did it in his previous fight as well against Paul Bentley. He was not afraid to go to the ground, to wrestle, to grapple. And, this kid is fearless. He's mentioned in numerous interviews he used to love wrestling with Chad when they were growing up. And, he's the kind of fighter that you'd like to see more of. A guy who comes in and is very open about wanting to be a jack of all trades, and I think he can be hugely successful.
Yeah, I agree. So was there any other, what fights was there standouts for you, Andreas? I know there was another one for me on the card, which was Chris Meir at flyweight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who didn't see that fight, Chris Meir, who was it was a really big step up in talent for Chris. He'd just come from Fight UK MMA, where he was the champion, but he hadn't fought anyone, in my opinion, of his opponent Mick Gerard's standard. And
yeah,
it was a great fight. The first round, Chris, firstly, for those of you who don't know, he'd been training at Team Alpha Male. So, he's been training with the likes of Benavidez and Castillo and Dillashaw and that. So he's been working on his Muay Thai. So I was interested, for a guy who was really known for his ground game, I was interested to see how he was going to be on the feet against Mick Gerard, who was a very decorated amateur boxer. The first round, he actually... I felt Mick Gerard was, although he did drop Mick Gerard, I thought Mick Gerard was doing okay on the feet in the first round. Did you tend to agree with that, Andreas?
Mick Gerard's a very tough guy, and we saw that early on in the fight, to weather the storm, although he did get knocked out. But it's a huge feat for Chris Mia to get the knockout over Gerard, who I'd say in the flyweight division is probably one of the most, he's a very gritty fighter, and, that win for Mia is, a testament to that.
Yeah, absolutely. He went to his ground game in the first round. I mean, it was all very grappling based for Mia, in my opinion. Even the knockout came from him clinching him against the fence. He went to the floor. He landed a few shots as he was getting up. Then there appeared to be a bit of a scrappy exchange, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, Mia landed this big right hand that sent Gerard just like... It was like the knockout. It was like when Machida knocked out Rashad and he folded it. His leg folded in on him. It was one of them moments. It was
a crazy knockout. I didn't get to see it live because I was working backstage, but you had the privilege of showing it to me over the Facebook GoPro kind of thing that BAMMA were doing, and it is phenomenal. It was an absolutely crazy knockout, and I think it shows that Chris Mia can go really far in this flyweight division.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, can you think of anyone you would have him fight next?
Well, that's the thing. The flyweights at the minute, it's a bit drawn to the ground. Maybe you throw him in. It was a big win for him. Throw him in with the champ, Rani Sadir. I think that would be an excellent fight to see. But at the minute, there's a lot of flyweights, but not necessarily in BAMMA. They're kind of dotted around, and we don't know with Cage Warriors what's going to happen with those contracts. So we'll have to wait and see if BAMMA bring those in the future. But hey, why not put Mia in with the champ?
Wow. So now I think that's interesting. If we, as I say, for those of you who don't know, Cage Warriors appears. It appears to be in some trouble. We don't really know the future of Cage Warriors at the moment. CEO has resigned. But that's a whole other issue. But the thing is, the fighters don't know what's going on, and we don't know what's going on with their contracts. That's why Andreas is talking about maybe that if these are able to be released from their contracts, BAMMA might sign some of these flyweights. So there could be some pretty interesting matchups there for Mia. Let's just have a listen to what Chris Mia said post-fight, because we caught up with him. This is a bit of a shorter interview, which I was disappointed with, because for those of you, I have said it on this podcast before, I went to school with Chris Mia, and I got the shortest interview with him, so thanks for that, Chris. But here's what Mia had to say post-fight. I'll be talking about getting Chris Mia on the MMA Mad podcast, my old mate from school, for a few months now, but it's finally happened. I've had to come and get you. A brilliant win for you, Chris. Your toughest opponent to date?
Yeah, definitely. I've got a lot of respect for Mick, and I'm delighted to come away with a win like that.
Yeah. The first round, it was, you seem to go. He came out as expected. He's very good. He's a great amateur boxer. He was hard hitting. Did it surprise you at all? Was that what you was expecting, and that's what you've been training with the likes of Seamus Macklin and Michael Rooney for?
Yeah, I kind of knew that's what he was going to do, but he's a little bit quicker than me, so he lit me up a bit at times. I thought I was going to hit harder, which it proved in the end, but I know he's quick on the inside and lit me up a little bit in the first, but it was a great learning experience. That's why you went for the takedown. Was you trying to get the submission there in the first? Yeah, grind him down a little bit, and then see what happens. It's MMA, so the more I can mix it up, kick, punch, knee, wrestle, the more options it gives me. Yeah. You was out at Alpha Male sparring with some of obviously the biggest names and the flyweight division in the UFC. Did that help you in there at all tonight? Not necessarily in the ring or in the cage, but like I've said, they really taught me how to live, the habits to do, the champion mindset, just how to go about being a professional fighter, really. And I think I took more of that away from it than anything else. And how was sparring with the likes of... You have been sparring with the likes of Michael Rooney, and how has that helped you? Obviously, you knocked him out with a big right hand. I haven't sparred Michael for a while, but I do a lot of work with Paul Green, with the boxers there and spar the kids there, and they lock me up. So if I can catch a national champion who's 17, young whippersnapper, I can catch most of the MMA guys. That's the way I look at it. So.
And when do you want to be next out? In April?
I'm not entirely sure yet. I need to go back, have a look at my team, see how injuries go. April's an option, or if I go away in the summer, whenever I get back after that, I've just got to go and take some time, enjoy tonight, and then I'll reassess in a couple of weeks, see what I want to do.
And maybe go back out to California?
Yeah, that's in the pipeline this year as well again. So that's what the next couple of fights are going to pay for. So,
Chris Meyer, thank you very much.
Thank you.
There you go, post-fight Chris Meyer. But it was a great card. The next, I think there was a few, first of all, the amateur, I don't know whether this was shown on TV or not, but the knockout right at the end of the night was absolutely mental.
Oh, yeah.
And then, but also the main fight, Tom Duquesnoy, I believe I've said that right.
You nailed it, mate.
he put on a show, didn't he? Really showed off his Muay Thai in the finish. I remember him landing a big knee, and then it was the kick that finished him off, I believe.
Overall though, he looked really good. At first, Klaschek started out grappling him, and it looked that maybe it could be a long night for Mr. Duquesnoy. But he, as all great champions do, he weathered the storm, came back with that TKO by strikes. He just really buttered him up, and he just showed great resilience to come back from, Klaschek's superb grappling in the beginning of the fight. And the first round definitely went to the Polish fighter and Krzysztof Klaschek. But no, Duquesnoy did excellent to win that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And post-fight, I remember seeing an interview with him saying, I believe it was you actually. Did you do the interview for MMA Plus?
It would have been Jordan, yes.
It was Jordan, right?
Yeah.
So Jordan asked him about Ash Grimshaw. Now, for those of you who don't know, Duquesnoy's last fight was against Ash Grimshaw, and it ended after 11 seconds because Duquesnoy caught Grimshaw with a groin shot, and it was looked like a very heavy kick, and Grimshaw couldn't continue. He was getting sick in a bucket after the 5 minutes, so he couldn't continue. But it surprised me when Jordan asked him, "What do you think about Ash Grimshaw?" He said something like, "Yeah, if he puts together 3 wins, we can make it." That seems crazy for a guy that really only had an 11-second chance and the fight ended in a no contest. Do you not agree? Do you not think they should have put Grimshaw in that position?
Yeah, it's actually really funny. I've spoke to Tom numerous times about this, and he always says it with a little smile on his face. But hey, he's a champ, and he does kind of have the bragging rights. I'd agree. We don't really know what would have happened in that fight. I remember being there, and I was extremely looking forward to that. I was calling it for fight of the night, and obviously it ended after 11 seconds. Obviously now Grimshaw at BAMMA 19 in Blackpool facing off against Orestes Bertrand. That's going to be a tough fight for him. A lot of people underestimating Bertrand, who is an incredible grappler. But yeah, no, it was weird comments from Duquesnoy to tell, arguably his main contender to go on a 3 or 4 fight winning streak before he gets another crack at the belt.
Yeah, that's even more strange that Grimshaw was, because you could understand if Grimshaw wasn't ready for the fight, but the fact that he's fighting on the next BAMMA card, I just found it even more odd, to be honest with you.
Duquesnoy's a man of the mind games, and I don't know, he might stir Grimshaw up a bit with that, but permitting Mr. Duquesnoy still around, that fight has to happen this year.
Yeah, I mean, we wasn't really meant to speak about it on the weekend, but can you really see Tom Duquesnoy sticking around with BAMMA for 3 more fights?
I don't know, I'd love him to, because I'm not a big fan of fighters jumping to the UFC too early. I can understand in terms of making money, that's where you've got to be as a fighter. But you know what, stick around, defend your belts. Leon Rocky Edwards did the same, went over after I believe it was 1 or 2 defences of his Lonsdale belt. Went over and lost in Brazil. So, I'd love to see Mr. Duquesnoy stay and, hopefully face Ashley Grimshaw.
Yeah, absolutely. Or I think it would take for him to get signed straight away. That it would take them to legalise MMA in France, which I think is still nobody really talks about it. But I think it would be great if they could do it. I think it's quite crazy that it's still illegal there. To be honest with you.
Yeah, MMA in France is a very weird one. Obviously, you can do MMA in France, but it has to be under pancration rules. I believe you can't use a cage either. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one over there to do with their government mainly kind of safeguarding it. But yeah, if UFC were to do France, then there's definitely a number of guys, including Tom Duquesnoy and another guy in Chet Kone that I feel could cut it.
Yeah, Chet Kone. I didn't even speak about him. We had Chris Fields on the podcast pre-fight, and he said, I asked him to give a Conor McGregor style prediction, and he said first round. I don't know if it's first round finish or first round knockout. Can you remember, Nick? No, if you can.
I think it was a knockout.
Possibly.
We'd have to go back and actually check the records, but
yeah. So
either way, a very bold prediction. So.
Yeah, so he said it would be a first round finish, and then I brought up that McGregor had said before his fight with Poirier, if anybody bets first round finish and brings their bet slip, they get into the after party for free. And Fields said, if you give me your first round bet slip for me, I'll buy you a drink. And it did end in the first round, but not in Fields' favour. That was a very short fight as well. Kone, I remember the talk of the media room was someone, I don't know whether it was yourself or...
Yeah.
Was it yourself, yeah?
It was me.
Yeah. You'd seen Kone on the pads warming up.
Dear God. Dear God, that's all I can say.
Yeah, so he was hitting them pretty hard, yeah?
The way he hit those pads, there's a short clip of it on my YouTube channel, Dre Knows MMA. You can see that. And the way he hits the pads with the ferocity, I was just thinking, I do not want to get hit by this guy. And, Chris Fields, an absolute fantastic grappler, and I was really surprised that he didn't look to take the fight down early on. Big mistake to stand up with Chet Kone, and he punished him.
Yeah, I mean, he started off, as I say, it was very short. Fields landed a nice head kick, and then it seemed to anger Kone.
Yeah.
And he just literally caught him with 1, 2, 3. But this was the controversy. There was a little bit of controversy. I'm interested to hear your opinion on this, Andreas. Referee for the fight was Neil Hall. So you can watch the fight as well. The fight, the knockout at least, is on the BAMMA Facebook page, BAMMA YouTube channel, I believe. So he knocked him down. He knocked Fields down after a flurry of hard punches, and then Neil Hall appeared to step in, but then step out without actually, putting his hands on Fields. But to look at it, it looked as if he was stopping it. So a lot of people were saying there was a bit of controversy there because Fields maybe opened up his guard, and then Chet Kone landed the big hammer fists that actually knocked him out. So I was wondering what were your views on that?
With any situation like that, you have to look at, the way that these referees have to be protecting the fighter first and foremost. And I think when Neil Hall was going in, he may have thought after that big punch that Fields was out of it. And that's why he kind of hesitated, came out, and then obviously that just opened him up for the big shot. But it did kind of look like a formality. Kone was going to jump on him. I think it was a good stoppage, but when you're a referee, you need to be decisive. And if you're going to jump in, you have to do it. You have to think of the fighters first. And as a lot of people say, I know it's frustrating, but I'd rather see an early stoppage than a late stoppage.
Yeah, and of course it's very easy as well for us as media to sit back and criticise the referees. It is one of the most difficult jobs in there.
I feel Neil Hall, the stoppage was on point. I just think that, in those kind of situations you need to be decisive. I could have argued for him stopping it the first time when he came in, but obviously he saw, his first person perspective, saw maybe Fields still in the fight. But I thought it was a good stoppage. Just I'd love to see referees be more decisive with their decisions.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the only other thing about BAMMA really was, it was in a smallish venue, the Wolverhampton Civic. And I said before, for me it was sort of strange seeing it in this venue. Because I've been going to BAMMA since BAMMA 4, which was a sellout at the NIA for Alex Reed, Tom Watson. So I suppose I've sort of seen BAMMA in that sort of arena sort of light. Now I realise why they changed it up. Probably it's very costly doing it in arenas always. But to see it in the Civic Hall, it wasn't completely full. I believe I did see the capacity was something like, was it the late 800s or something?
I don't know the word on the official number, but I remember in fact the arena being set up for around 2,000, just under that.
Yeah, but did you think it didn't look full?
No, it didn't look full. You've got to think of it this way. Wolves is a very different market. We've not seen any major UK MMA promotion do Wolves in the way that BAMMA did. So it's very, I'm indifferent about it. I agree with you, Jim. You can't do these stadiums, these arenas, unless you know you're going to pack them out. And that Alex Reed, Tom Watson fight at BAMMA 4 was, a legitimate big seller fight. I thought, I've spoke about this in other podcasts on MMA Plus. I thought one of the factors that may have hindered BAMMA selling more tickets is not having a big English name on the card. Chris Fields is a big name in terms of MMA, but he's from Ireland. Duquesnoy, I like to think that we've adopted him as one of our own, but he's a French fighter. You have to think about it. The biggest reaction of the night came in that amateur welterweight bout with Nathan Clayton, who may have possibly been the biggest ticket seller on the night. So you've got to think, when you're doing shows like Wolves in these regional areas, you need to be targeting fighters from, the surrounding area. And I don't know if BAMMA did that necessarily. But, yeah, no, I'd agree. It definitely wasn't packed to the rafters.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they do need the British name. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with Cage Warriors, as you say, because just something that pops to mind being Midlands is Tom Breeze, who's
fantastic fighter.
Yeah, he left BAMMA he was a champion at BAMMA, British welterweight champion, and he joined Cage Warriors after he had a knee injury, tore his ACL. He was on the podcast actually, and he came back and he won very, very impressively at Cage Warriors. But as I say, now Cage Warriors is in this situation. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with Tom, because I think he could come back to BAMMA and he'd be perfect for those type of shows.
Oh, definitely. A fighter from the West Midlands would sell indiscriminately. He is a tremendous fighter. I don't want to blow smoke up his arse, but he is fantastic. Training at TriStar as well with the likes of GSP, Rory McDonald. He is an absolute talent. He's a rarity in the sport to see a guy at this level at that such young age, even with an injury, being so highly touted.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly interesting to see what's going to happen. We'll keep you updated with that. Do you think it will be long before they release something? Cage Warriors, that is.
I hope they release something soon, but it's really hard to tell.
Yeah. But yeah, that was BAMMA 18. The next BAMMA 19 will be in Blackpool. They're doing an event at the end of every month, I believe now, which I think is brilliant for UK MMA. Do you know the exact date of BAMMA 19? I believe it's the 28th, is that right?
Yes, it is the 28th of March, 30 days' time.
Yeah, 30 days' time, so that'll be in Blackpool. Ash Grimshaw's on that card, so it'll be interesting to see what his reaction is to, presuming that he will win, to how Tom Duquesnoy's fight and, Tom Duquesnoy's reaction after his fight about Ash Grimshaw. So,
I just want to say quickly, that card, although it doesn't have a title fight, has a few gems on it. The main event, Jeremy Petley versus Martin Stapleton at lightweight. Martin Stapleton is arguably the best lightweight in the country. I'm a huge fan of his. He is a tremendous fighter, and I think he's, for the first time since a non-American promotion, fighting outside of that, this is going to be one of his biggest tests. You mentioned Grimshaw. There's a potential fight of the year candidate on there with Jack McGann fighting out the Wolves Lair, going up against Mark Diakese, and obviously Carl Everington, the big hitting heavyweight on that show as well. So it's going to be a fantastic event.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's in Blackpool, March 28th. Check it out. We'll talk about it before. We'll try and get some of the fighters on the podcast. But yeah, check it out. It'll be great to see how that goes. But moving on, the UFC. Just before we go on to UFC 184, which is the main talking point of this podcast, there was a UFC card on Sunday night in Brazil. Bigfoot versus Mia. Any standout fights? I suppose this question for both of you, really, Nick and Andreas. Any standout fights on that card for you? Any fights that you enjoyed? Presuming that you watched them, of course.
Yeah, I'll go first. And it was a night of upsets, if you want to call it that.
Which you can see on the MMA Mad website on our predictions page, which we do it for every event. And me and Dale, we literally got no points, and I don't believe that's ever happened before.
Let it be clear that not all 3 journalists participating got no points. One of us got a few correct picks, not a lot, but more than none.
Correct, you did. But for me and Dale, it was the worst night in history. 0 points, I've been putting bets on, and I'm glad I didn't put a bet on for this card because all the underdogs seem to have won.
The interesting part too was it was a lot of not only the underdogs, but a lot of the Brazilians were favorited, and obviously most people know the Brazilian track record in Brazil is incredible. So the fact that they're favorites and they're in Brazil and they got upset that's just wild. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Before I interrupted you, Andreas, what was the standouts for you?
Well, obviously I mentioned in the upsets, out of all the main card fights, the only one I guessed correctly was Ponzinibbio. I think I pronounced that right. Beating Sean Strickland. Apart from that, they all went the other way. My standout has to probably be the Frank Mir finish of Bigfoot Silva, just because he finished him with a jab. That was pretty crazy. Antonio Bigfoot Silva. He's a big brute, a very tough guy. He's been in those wars. We saw it with guys like Mark Hunt, and for Frank Mir, who is not exactly one of the best strikers in the heavyweight division, to finish him with that jab, it was crazy. It was, especially in Brazil.
So it was a jab. It wasn't a left hook, no?
Jab, left hook. I may be wrong. From the angle I saw it on TV, it looked like a jab, but it may have been a left hook.
Yeah, I mean, that's very. I'm trying to actually find it now as a CV. It was probably a sort of left hook that wasn't fully, turned, but very impressive comeback. And it was, it is a comeback because Frank Mir. He hasn't won. When was the last time Frank Mir won, Nick? Can you look that up for me? He hadn't won in a while. It's so for him to come back and knock Bigfoot Silva out like that, it was so impressive. And at the moment, I think it's got to be down as comeback of the year. I think I haven't seen a better one so far this year. It's going to be a contender for sure.
His last win was Antonio Nogueira at UFC 40.
Yeah, when he broke his arm with the Kimura.
Right, yep, exactly. So then he lost to Junior Dos Santos, then Cormier, then Barnett, then Overeem, 4 losses in a row, spanning a couple of years there. Obviously, those are good fighters, but I mean, I don't know how well you guys remember the Overeem fight, but he really got destroyed in that fight. It was a lot of him laying on the ground, kind of calling Overeem over to him, and Overeem just not being part of the ground game at all. But I mean, at that point, I thought his career was over, honestly, and then to have him come back and knock out Bigfoot like that is truly unbelievable.
Yeah, but since the Nogueira fight where he broke his arm, there's always been this thing about Frank Mir for me. This thing of if it goes to the ground, he's an absolute machine. And even in the Overeem fight, the whole time, because it was a comeback for Overeem as well, because he was he'd lost a couple in a row. He'd lost to Travis Brown and to Bigfoot himself, so he was coming back, and so every time Overeem was going to him on the ground, I was, it had my heart racing, so I think Frank Mir, he's definitely, I did question after that fight, has he still got it, but I think now he's shown he definitely does still have it, and he put him in an interesting position in the division for me. Who should he fight next? For me, Brendan Schaub. What about you guys?
That's a good fight. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Yeah,
I think it's a really good fight. I don't think you can throw him right back into the fire right away. I think Brendan Schaub's makes the most sense right now.
Yeah, I agree because Brendan obviously lost to Arlovsky in his last fight.
Right.
And obviously Joe Rogan famously went on these podcasts and said that he thinks he should retire, and it upset Brendan a bit. But I think it'd be interesting to see how that fight goes. Because I think they're both good grapplers, and obviously Mir's now shown of the knockout power he has got. Sorry. Can
I throw this one out there?
You can.
What are the chances of Frank Mir, Brock Lesnar 3?
Well, he did talk about it, didn't he? But do you want to see that fight?
You know what? I'm a huge Brock fan. You know, Brock got me in to MMA when he first came over. You know, just to contextualize. When I witnessed Frank Mir beat Brock Lesnar, to me that was like, wow, this guy is legit. You know, coming in to view MMA, not knowing much about it, being a wrestling fan, seeing someone beat up Brock Lesnar, I was like, this guy. You know, obviously it was a submission win. I believe it was a submission win, a knee bar. Yeah, knee bar. So yeah, I was like, wow, you know, this guy's cool. And I've always been a big fan of Frank. You know, you've said it earlier with his submission game. It's very good in the heavyweight division because he's in a division where not a lot of guys, you know, tend to go to the ground because, you know, they're all big hitters. But hey, I'd love to see Frank Mir free.
Well, see, I would love to see Brock come back, and so I suppose I wouldn't mind who he fought because I just want to see him come back. But I don't know about it because Brock came back and destroyed Frank Mir in his second fight. You know, I mean, he really put it on him. But yeah, I think because Frank won the first, I think there is a possibility of a trilogy there. But do you think they can really get Brock back? I'm not too sure. I think for that fight though, Brock might come back. I think Brock thinks that, you know, he really. I don't think he likes Frank Mir. I think he knows he can beat him. So I think that might tempt Brock. It just depends if the money's there.
Well, before this whole WWE thing came, I don't know. It's kind of up in the air at the minute. But the one fight that seemed to lure Brock out of wrestling was that Fedor Emelianenko fight. Obviously, that never happened. You know, to put Frank Mir on the same pedestal as Fedor would be crazy. But, you know, I think it's a big fight for Brock still to come back. And I think Alistair Overeem's another one that Brock would want to fight. He was in bad shape when he fought Overeem, you know, at the end of his UFC career. So, no, that's another one you could put up against. But, you know, I'd like to see Frank and Brock go at it again. As they're both at two different points in their careers. And, heck, why not? Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean I've completely forgotten what I was going to say mid-sentence there. It's completely gone. It was the Fedor Emelianenko fight. Fedor, I think if they could, I know it's not, you know, people would say he's past it, he's retired. If they could make that fight happen still in the next 2 years, I think that'd be huge.
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean? Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, that's been signed for May 2nd. That fight would have been better 5 years ago. You know, Pacquiao, he's lost a few times since then. But look at the gate. Look at the ticket prices. I think Brock versus Fedor would be the same thing. Not the same thing, but I think it would be on a similar level for MMA.
The other thing we have to remember, too, is that obviously the three of us and probably most people listening to a podcast like this are constantly immersed in the world of MMA. But as far as these casual fans, they're buying tickets and they're going to they're paying for these pay-per-views based on names alone. Yeah. So I agree. Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao would have been a better fight years ago. But the reason that it's so successful is because people who don't really watch boxing on a regular basis hear those names and they recognize those two names, and that's why they're going. So I think you're 100% right with Brock and Fedor. I think that would still sell like crazy.
Yeah. In my opinion, they've got 2 years to make that fight.
I don't see Fedor coming back. Yeah, I
agree with that too.
He kind of, to do with, you know, his father passing away, he said he'd never fight again. I know Bellator have tried to goad him out of retirement. He's appearing on their fan access kind of thing this weekend, but I don't think we'll see Fedor back, which is sad because that fight, when they were going to make it, even though both guys were coming off losses, would have been huge for the sport of MMA.
Yeah, I think the only thing something that might persuade him is if there is a big pot of money on the line. You know, as I say, money money can change anyone. So I don't know. Fedor's obviously a rich guy, but I think that fight's so big that they could potentially offer him a very good deal.
No, I agree with you too that Brock, the thing that would draw him from the WWE back into the UFC would be those legacy fights. Obviously, I'm sure he wants to be champion again. Who doesn't want to be a UFC champion? But I think for him right now, those legacy fights, either avenging former losses or those huge marquee fights, I think that is what's going to bring him out.
Yeah, I agree. And the money.
I'm sure he's not going to turn the check down too. I'm sure he wants that as
well. Because he's got a cushy deal at the WWE, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh,
I assume. I don't know the numbers, but
yeah. I mean, I believe he doesn't like talking. I read Brock Lesnar's autobiography. He really doesn't like talking. So when I re-signed him, I believe he made them sign Heyman as well to talk for him, which is fantastic.
I'm a huge Heyman fan, and seeing Heyman and Brock in the WWE over the past few years has been fantastic. You know, made more for Paul Heyman, who on the mic can make anyone look like gold, and he's done that time and time again with Brock. And you know, Brock is money in wrestling, MMA, whatever you want to put him in. Brock Lesnar could play water polo and still sell out arenas. That's how big this guy is.
Yeah, I agree. But moving on, a couple of other fights stood out for me on the card. Sam Alvey pulled off a big win. He knocked out. Did you say it's Cesar Ferreira or is it Hazer Ferreira? How would you say that?
I say Cesar, but I don't know if that's correct or not.
Cesar Ferreira, who looked a lot like Vitor in that fight. Vitor's his mentor, is that right?
Yeah, from they were on Tough, right?
Can you check?
I believe didn't Cesar win Tough? I think he won
Tough. The first, I believe it was the first Tough Brazil.
Yeah, let me check that real quick.
Yeah, he did. He won the middleweight final in Tough Brazil. But yeah, he went on a. He really is a beast, and that's I thought Sam Alvey stood no chance against him in there. But it just goes to show when you land that punch, and I believe it was an uppercut that finished him off. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are, how you've trained. You know, if you've got that power, it's sometimes all it takes.
Here's the thing, Sam Alvey, I was first introduced to when he defeated one of the UK veterans, Tom Watson, back in 2014. You know, here's the thing with Cesar Vea. He had that fight won against CB Dollaway last year, and he threw that away. He was pummeling CB. CB came back to knock him out. Right there, that should ring alarm bells. That this guy can get gassed, and when he gets gassed, he gets sloppy. And we saw it again with the Alvey fight. Exactly the same thing happened. And testament to Sam Alvey. He looked fantastic in there. But I think Verheyen needs to work on his cardio a bit.
Possibly. Just a slight correction there. It was a good fight. Alvey rocked Watson several times, and Watson did get the decision win in that fight.
Sorry, my bad. Watson did.
I remember it being a close fight with him rocking Watson. We've spoken about it before. Watson's a complete warrior. I don't know what he's where his career lies now. He's lost to Rafael Natal last. But yeah, Sam Alvey, interesting to see 2 wins in a row for him now. Interesting to see where he ends up. But yeah, the only other fight I really want to talk about is Michael Johnson.
Unbelievable. I was about to say that was my standout performance on that card, hands down.
Who? Michael Johnson?
Yeah, absolutely. I was blown away. All right, just to provide, every once in a while I'll watch fights with my dad, who is definitely an MMA fan, but it probably isn't as knowledgeable as most of the people watching fights. So I basically talked up Edson Barboza this entire time, saying, watch this guy, his kicks are amazing. Yeah. I think he's the best striker in MMA, with the possible exception of Anthony Pettis. And I was talking about the whole time, and it wasn't even like Edson Barboza didn't show up. He was throwing these crazy kicks. He landed a few crazy body kicks, and basically he proved my point of like, basically my dad was like, oh, you're right, he is a great striker, but Michael Johnson's performance was phenomenal. I thought that was, like, obviously he's good, he has some big wins. He beat Gleason Tebow and Melvin Gillard, but the Joe Lozon win, that was a little skeptical. I don't know if you guys remember that fight specifically, but I was actually at it live. It was in Boston, and it almost looked like Joe Lozon just didn't show up for that fight. He looked like he was sleepwalking through the whole thing. It was very uncharacteristic of Joe Lozon, so I kind of put an asterisk next to that one. And then, Gleason's had some questionable losses on his record. I mean, not real. He's obviously a great fighter, a veteran. I think, isn't he the guy who has the most wins in the UFC or something?
Close to it, I believe.
I know. He wins all the time, but it's obviously a huge win for Michael Johnson.
He's had a lot of fights in the UFC, yeah.
Right, and then he beat Melvin Gillard, also dangerous, but he's going through kind of a slump. So Michael Johnson, obviously, he's proven that he's good, but I thought there's still some questions with him, and his performance at Edson Barboza, he just, I think he looked unbelievable. I think he outclassed him. I think he looked better in every aspect of the game, and I was truly blown away by that performance.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, really. I think it's interesting to see where he goes next, and a great win for the Black Zillions as well.
the Black Zillions have been on an absolute tear starting from I think it was like a year and a half ago. I remember they were the butt of everyone's joke not that long ago. A year and a half, 2 years ago, everyone was making fun of them, and now they're one of the strongest camps in MMA, hands down.
Yeah, well, they've got a great team there, haven't they? Really, I think it just took them to gel. You know, you can't question the coach's ability. You know, you got Kenny Monday, the wrestling coach, and Henry Hooft, the striking coach. You can't question their ability, can you, Andreas?
No, definitely not. I think Henry Hooft is one of the best striking coaches in MMA period. And you know, I'd agree with what you say about the Black Zillions. They just took time to gel. I think they had a few egos in the gym, and they've long gone now. They've kind of, you know, rattled down. Everyone's got their head down, and they're looking absolutely fantastic as a gym. You know, a lot of guys going out there to train. I know, obviously, we've got Bellator this week. Linton Vassell has spent a portion of his fight camp training with the Black Zillions as well. So, you know, they're a very credible fight camp.
Yeah, and I completely forgot about Bellator. We've got so much to cover as well. Liam McGeary's on that card. The Brit. You know, I think it's Paul Daly. Paul Daly's on that card. Such a shame he's not fighting Douglas Lima though.
That's a dream fight, and I hope Bellator make it. They have to. I was really gutted when that fell out, but you know, you got to look at it. Obviously, Michael Page off the fight card as well got him a cut. I think it was over his left eye, which means, but you know, the replacement fight, Brennan Ward, Curtis Millender, that's gonna be a great fight. I'm a big fan of Brennan Ward, so I think there's still a lot to look forward to for the event.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's gonna be a great card, and I like it. I like the name, the British Invasion. It's like the old school UFC.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I was going. Sorry, go ahead, Andrews.
No, I was just going to say, I was at the press conference when they did the British Invasion press conference, and you must have seen the videos where they're outside, and there's that big London tour bus, and they're all saying these cheesy lines, the British are coming. You know, it was fantastic to see the camaraderie between all of them, and I think that together, you know, although they're not teammates, there's a kind of team feeling between them that they want to go to America and do well, and when they do all get to fight, you know, I'm sure we'll see that.
Yeah, I hope so. The only thing I want to say now, Paul Daly, I spoke about Paul Daly, is on that card. A guy who spoke very highly about Paul Daly was, and it hurts me to say this, and I'll explain why, is Mike Swick. Now, I've been speaking about getting Mike Swick on this podcast for a while, and I said on a previous podcast, it says Mike Swick's going to be on the next episode. And I wasn't lying, he was. We recorded the episode on a Saturday. We planned it. Mike's in Thailand, Nick's in the States. It took a while to plan. Anyway, we did an hour with him. Beautiful interview. Really nice guy. And then afterwards, the recording had messed up. I don't know why. There was an echo on it. We couldn't fix it. So, as I say, it kills me to say it was a great interview, but that will be just after one that you'll never hear, unfortunately. But Nick Rizner's been writing articles on it. He's done part 2. Nick, can we see a part 3 of that?
That's all of it, I believe. You gotta go through and check it, but
that's not all of it.
Unless I wrote an article on the conversation we had, but that pretty much covered the spectrum of your Q&A with Mike Swick. Now, normally I wouldn't be one to ask for credit, but that was a very difficult interview to listen to. The reason we didn't release it is because, like Jim said, it echoed. So basically, it was Mike Swick talking, and then maybe 1 or 2 seconds later, it was Mike Swick's voice again, lapped over his first voice. So I was trying to listen to it and decipher what he's saying, and then, as Jim recalls, at one point, I believe he was in the mall, there was one of the ladies, he was in Thailand, one of the ladies in the mall started screaming in Thai during his thing. So at some point, it was Mike Swick, lapped over Mike Swick, and basically 2 versions of this lady in Thailand screaming in a foreign language. And I was trying to listen to it. I actually was in Boston that weekend. I was listening to it and trying to decipher what they were saying, and I was hearing all these voices, and I think I was making a funny face because my friend looked at me, and she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I have the worst headache right now. It was terrible. So normally I'd be more modest, but I think I deserve some credit for just sifting through that to provide to save Jim. I think Jim was particularly sad about that.
Yeah, well,
I was trying to cheer him up a little bit. I felt bad for Jim because that was actually the first episode we did. We tried this whole new format. If you guys have been listening to this podcast for a while, it used to be me and Jim kind of co-interviewing, and then we decided that, it sounds cleaner, more professional if it's more Jim and the guest one-on-one, and then I kind of come in a la Ariel Helwani and New York Rick, that kind of feel. So that was the first time we did it, and I know Jim's a huge fan of Mike Swick, as am I, but I know he's looking forward to this episode for a long time. And I will say, Jim, it was a great episode, and unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, it got lost, but it'll become a legend one day.
Yeah, no, we will get Mike Swick back on this podcast, right? We just need something to happen, right? Something little, something we can say, oh, Mike, can you come on for this? And we'll do it again.
Anything. We need the smallest excuse, and we'll get it back on.
Yeah, it does. It does kill me that it didn't work. But, as I say, come on, Nick, you can squeeze a part 3 out of it, I'm sure.
And I'll try my best, but I did one, and I was like, oh my god, the worst headache. And then I was Facebook chatting with Jim, and he was like, so hopefully you get the rest of that interview in there. And I was like, oh god, you're gonna make me go back to that audio. So I got part 2, so maybe we'll see about part 3, but don't get too greedy, Jim. It was a lasting hit.
No, I won't, but it does kill me.
But real quick, back to Bellator 134, the British Invasion. I think that it's important that we talk about this, just because I'm sure there's other websites out there, but as far as I know, we're the only UK-US split website. And obviously it's the British Invasion. It's kind of England versus America here. So
yeah,
I feel like this is an important one. I think there's a lot on the line reputation-wise. Disappointing loss for you guys in Michael Page, though. I'm not gonna lie. That was the fight I was probably looking forward to most.
Yeah, I feel like he's like so flashy and everyone's watching Michael Page. I've seen video recently, for some reason, his video of his first fight or his second fight for UFC MMA, where he's just like taking the piss out of his opponent. He's being shared around Facebook by some of the big, big viral pages like the Lad Bible, and everyone, even non-MMA fans, are sharing it. So I think that's been good promotion for Michael Page, but a shame that he did get the cut.
Yeah, absolutely. And just real quick, I want to talk about Matt Bessette, too. He's the prelim headliner. Unfortunately, the way it works out, at least in the States, is it's going to be on Spike.com. I don't know, do they televise the Bellators in the UK?
Yeah.
We get them on delay, but it's only the main card. Right,
yeah, so even here, they only televise the main card.
I'm not sure, because they've done a new deal in the UK. Is it still on Viva, Andreas?
Yeah, no, it's now on Channel 5 USA, I believe, or 5 Star, but for the British Invasion event, obviously this was the plan before the fallout happened. It was going to be shown on delay on Channel 5 24 hours after the event, but the recent shows have been shown on I believe it's 5 USA or 5 Star.
Right, and we get a day delay?
Yes, it's a day delay, 1 or 2 days. I can't remember if I saw one on a Monday once, but it's either on a Sunday or Monday. But obviously that's down to the fact that Viacom, who own Bellator and Spike TV, etc., also own Channel 5 over in the UK.
Yeah, sure.
Now, I'm assuming, unless they black you guys out, if the prelims are on Spike.com, you guys can watch those live on Spike.com, correct?
No.
They're geo-blocked.
Oh, they do? Okay.
So you can do it for some sort of proxy site, though.
Oh, right. But yeah, that's getting into some pretty technical stuff. But,
yeah, that's what Fields said to me. I was so embarrassed. Last week, Fields was watching the Conor McGregor documentary. I was like, oh, we can't watch that in the UK. He was like, oh, just run it through some sort of proxy site. I was like, oh, yeah, I can definitely do that. So, yeah, no, I'm not that technical, actually.
But anyway, all I want to say about Matt Bessette was that if you're listening to this in the U.S., I'm not sure about other countries. We just heard about the UK, but I don't know about the rest of the world. But if you're listening to this in the U.S., the prelims are going to be broadcast on Spike.com starting at 6:45 Eastern Time. Matt Bessette is the headliner on the prelims. So the last fight right before the main card starts. And I just wanted to talk about him real quick because he's actually I'm from Connecticut, state in the United States. If you guys are from abroad, but Matt Bessette's also from the same state as me. It's kind of a smaller state, so that's pretty rare. And I actually interviewed him recently, and the story behind that was that I was going to a bar that's literally within walking distance of my apartment. Walked to the bar. We were playing some pool, and he kind of kicked us out of they're closing, so he was like, all right, guys, time to go. And I noticed he had cauliflower ears, and I was like, oh, do you train? And he was like, yeah, I train. I was like, MMA or wrestling or what? Like, what's the years? And he said MMA, and he said he fought for Bellator. And I was like, oh, what's your name? And he said, Matt Bessette. And it hit me. I think I interviewed you like a year ago for an old website I had, and he was like, "What's
He's like,
what's
you
your
don't
name?"
remember me? What kind of journalist are you?
I know, I didn't recognize him. I'm so sorry. But I was like, and I won't mention the website. I'm not trying to take away from MMA Mad. Also, I've been posting in like a year and a half on the website. But he was like, Matt Bissett, and I was like, oh, I definitely interviewed you. And what's your name? I was like, Nick Rizner. He's like, oh yeah, like I remember you. We did that interview for the website that won't be named. But I was like, that's amazing. So I interviewed him, and he's on this card, and couldn't be a nicer guy. But the other thing that's interesting is the fact that, you know, we talk about these fighters in the UFC, these marquee guys, and they're getting paid a decent amount. But this guy, Matt Bissett, he's on the prelims for this particular card, but he's been on TV multiple times, and he's still bouncing at a bar that's down the street from me. And it's crazy when you think about how much he must train every single day, who knows how many hours, working nonstop, working as hard as a guy like Brock Lesnar, and he's probably not getting paid anywhere near the same amount because he still has to bounce at this bar down the street. So I think that's an interesting.
Oh, he's a bouncer.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and that's not his regular job. I don't know what he does during the days, but every once in a while he'll bounce at this bar or another bar that's near me.
Well, I think
and I only know this from talking to him, but yeah, he's obviously, I don't think he's doing it for the fun of it. I think he needs the extra income. So it's interesting to see that, you know, some of these smaller guys. This isn't even that small. This is Bellator. It's probably the second biggest promotion in MMA, and he still needs to bounce every once in a while to make some money. So I think it's an interesting perspective.
That's a whole, I agree. That's a whole other issue. I don't think we're going to have time to cover it today, but I think we should, next episode, we'll cover fighter pay. Because, that is an interesting issue. Neil Seary in the UK, from Ireland, he still works in a warehouse, I believe. So, it's definitely something to cover anyway in the next episode.
Yeah, but I just want to talk about Matt Bissett real quick, because he could have been a nicer guy. He's got a really cool backstory.
Well, let's get him on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can definitely do that.
Go down there, get chucked out, and as he's throwing you out, say, Matt, will you come on the show post-fight? And I'm sure he'll say yeah.
I will say, in case he does listen to this, my one problem was that he kind of insulted my pool game a little bit. I was a little upset because I was down by 4 balls. I came all the way back. I unfortunately scratched in the 8 ball, but I was in a huge hole before. And then he answered all my questions for the interview, and then at the end he said, "By the way, you suck at pool." And that was a low blow. I'm pretty upset by it, so we might have to blacklist him from the MMA podcast. But maybe we can sort our differences and get him on. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. But moving on now. Last topic is obviously the biggest topic, which is UFC 184, which is coming up this Saturday night from the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Well, it was going to be even better than it is. Originally, they had Chris Weidman and Vitor Belfort on this card. That didn't happen. That's been rescheduled. But Ronda and Kat, it's going to be a great fight, isn't it, guys?
Oh, God, yeah. What a fight. I said, I was talking on Twitter earlier, and I was putting the question out there, is Zingano the toughest challenge that Ronda Rousey has had to face? And maybe, she may not be the toughest, but what I'd say is she's arguably the most credible. What Zingano has done in the UFC, the way she's beaten opponents like Raquel Pennington, Miesha Tate, and Amanda Nunes in that last fight, which an absolute barn burner. I love that fight. The way Zingano dealt with Nunes on the ground was excellent. Yeah. I think Zingano, in terms of credibility, is Ronda's most credible challenge. Maybe not her toughest. You have to look at people like Liz Carmouche, who's one tough girl. Miesha Tate weathered a storm. Those two are very tough individuals. Whereas I think Zingano's credibility is out there. The way she's dealt with opponents herself. That's why I'm kind of saying that.
So are you picking Zingano?
I'm not picking Zingano. I'm a huge Kat Zingano fan. I think she is a fantastic fight. I just mentioned that Amanda Nunes fight. Incredible fight. The way she's dealt with her opponents. But, you can't pick against Ronda Rousey right now. It's ludicrous to say that. That's like me having to pick me against Brock Lesnar. You know what I mean? that may be a bit out there, but I mean Ronda Rousey is the man. I don't. She's the woman right now, and you can't. No one can touch her, and that's why I say Zingano is arguably the most credible challenger. but I don't think she is Rousey's toughest, and I think Ronda Rousey's going to come out on top.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you there. I think Ronda, she just seems unstoppable. I think that the only time we've ever, Misha took her out of the first round. That was one of the times where everyone was like, wow, But then Ronda still, armbarred her. Liz got her back in the first round. Everyone was like, wow, again. But if you think about it, they're not that big things. But it's just because Ronda is this machine. And I think when Ronda finally does lose, it's going to feel like Anderson Silva Weidman.
I agree 100%. I think that you hit it right in the head with, when these small victories are kind of celebrated as these huge feats, that's just a testament to how good and how dominant Ronda Rousey is. I think part of it's an era thing. I think women's MMA is outstanding right now, but it is newer than men's MMA. So I think that they're still in that phase. They're in that Chuck Liddell, Matt Hughes phase, where there's dominant people, but there's still a lot of, you need more depth in the divisions. I think that's forthcoming. But I think it's very likely that Ronda Rousey could end her career undefeated, just given the landscape, given how good she is. And then she'll be one of those people, years from now, people will look back and be like, oh, can Ronda Rousey beat today's bantamweight champion? And it'll be those MMA discussions all over again.
Well, here's the thing. Ronda Rousey, who comes from a judoka background, she looks phenomenal in every kind of area of mixed martial arts. And it's getting to the point now where people are questioning her against a fighter in Holly Holm who is a world boxing champion. People are saying, Rousey's boxing is incredible. And when you are questioning that, you have to say, is this the Ronda Rousey hype train, or is this girl that damn good?
Yeah, I agree. And that's
well, Holly Holm's one of the best female boxers of all time. So that's crazy that people are wondering if Rousey's striking is on par with her. Honestly, I question it too. I think Rousey does look that good, and you just watch Fight to Fight how much she's developed her striking. It's so impressive what kind of athlete she is, Ronda Rousey.
Predictions, guys, for me, first round armbar Rousey. Andreas?
To me, I can't say that. Zingano is she's, as I said, a credible challenge. I don't really think it's going to end in the first round. I'm going to say round 3, Ronda Rousey TKO.
Wow. Nick?
I believe you'd have to check. Did Dale post our predictions yet?
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. I know we sent it to him. You'd have to check what I wrote. I believe
prediction. Come on.
I think it's going to be an armbar by Rousey, and I'm pretty sure I said the first round, but I don't want to contradict myself. So whatever round I put in the predictions, I think it's going to be an armbar in that round. But yeah, I believe it's the first round.
Yeah, I think it's got to be. I might put a bet on that.
It's been a while. I miss Rousey's armbars. She's been mixing it up recently.
Yeah, she has. But another fight that stands out for me on that card is the headline in the prelims: Munoz versus Roan Canero. Munoz coming back from 2 losses. But you got to think, if Munoz comes back and wins, he's got to go on that Philippines card, hasn't he, Andreas?
Whether Mark Munoz wins or loses, he's got to be on that card, I believe. I think you have to look past Mark Munoz as the fighter and look more at Mark Munoz the person. And you look at all his personal struggles that have been well documented in the world of MMA, and you just look at this guy, you want to root for him, and you want him to do well. It's great to see him back. We know he's had injury troubles and some other problems as well. The way this is set up, Mark Munoz, if he wrestles well, he'll win this fight. And yeah, I agree. We've got to see him in the Philippines.
Yeah, I agree. That's not long after this fight, to be honest with you, for a training camp. What month is that?
Yeah, but if you've got to look at who Munoz is facing now. Okay, it's arguably a warm-up fight or a tune-up fight.
Yeah.
Depending how he wins this, he could arguably walk into that Philippines card. Guys like Mark Munoz train all year round. So heck, put him on that card. Donald Cerrone's done it, so why can't Mark Munoz?
True.
The Philippines card is May 16th, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's got time.
Yeah, he has got time. I'd say they're definitely going to do that, to be honest with you.
And the other thing too is Munoz. I mean, a loss is a loss, and unfortunately, that's how fans especially remember it. So Munoz is coming off. He's lost 3 out of his last 4 fights, but it was to Chris Weidman, who obviously we've seen what he could do since then. Lyoto Machida, who is one of the best of all time, and Gegard Mousasi, who I believe is still a top contender at middleweight. So they're losses, but I mean, I think most people in the UFC would lose to those guys. So I don't think it's necessarily a knock on Munoz. And if he can turn around and win, there's no question that not only will he be on that card, but I think he'll kind of shoot right back up the rankings. And if he loses, I think they still have to put him on that card. He's still a big name, still an exciting fighter. So.
For sure, yeah. We'll dive into that card nearer the time. But yeah, the last fight we want to talk about, we're going to talk about Holly Holm. She, amazing boxer. She's fighting an amazing boxer in Raquel Pennington. Not on her level, though, in my opinion. I think Holm's going to... I've actually gone decision, but just because I think the UFC jitters might get to her a little bit, and she might struggle to just find the mark there. But I don't think she's going to struggle. How about you guys?
There's no way. There's no way this can go decision. There's no way on her. Raquel Pennington is a brawler. She will get into it, whether it's in the grappling aspect or stand and bang. She immerses herself into a fight. The way the UFC have set this up perfectly, these two are going to go at it either way. It's going to be a finish. Obviously, I'm going to pick Holly Holm here. But I think Pennington is a good first test, a tough first test, because she's going to keep coming forward no matter what Holly Holm does, no matter what Holly Holm throws at her. So, in that aspect, I think it's going to be an interesting fight.
I agree, and I think that Pennington, you're right, it's a perfect set of matchmaking. I think Pennington's going to bring the best out of Holly Holm just by taking the fight to her. And also, I don't know how common of an opinion this is, but Pennington is actually one of my favorite fighters in the division. She's an Ultimate Fighter. First of all, her fight with Jessamine Duke, I think people at the time likened it to Forrest versus Stephen Bonner for women, and obviously it wasn't quite on that level just because the stakes weren't as high. But that fight was unbelievable. That was at the time women's MMA was still kind of a new thing in the UFC, and I think that kind of put them on the map as like, wow, these people can really brawl. And I think Raquel Pennington is an extremely exciting fighter. She's been on a tear since then, so I think she's one of my favorite fighters in the division. And while I also picked Holly Holm, I think Pennington's great, and I think she's going to really bring it to Holly Holm.
Yeah, she's tough. That's why I think that's why I've gone decision really. But we'll
How
see.
did she win her last fight? Wasn't it like a bulldog show?
Who? Raquel Pennington?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty wild submission. It almost looked like she had her in a headlock, and all of a sudden she was tapping.
Yeah, it was a bulldog choke. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, really exciting stuff. I think she's great. I was actually at that fight live. That was the Vegas card, right? The two championship fights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at that one live, and I was with my friend. And I forget who was she fighting in that.
Let me double check on that.
But I remember I feel like I was rooting for Raquel.
Smith.
Oh right, yeah. She actually tested positive for some sort of performance enhancing drug, so it's even more impressive that Raquel finished her the way she did. But yeah, no, I thought Pennington. I think she's been an absolute tear. I think she's going to be a star in this division. People don't know her yet. I think they will, and I think that this fight will elevate both fighters, to be honest.
Yeah, so that's UFC 184. That's this Saturday at the Staples Center, Los Angeles, on pay-per-view. There's some things going around saying avoid this event. I disagree with that, so I certainly won't be avoiding this event. If you look on Twitter, you'll see why people are saying avoid the event, but it's to do with fire pay, etc. So I won't be avoiding this event. I'll be tuning in. It's going to be a great card. Stick with us. We'll be doing all the live stream. Obviously, as well, go to MMA Plus. I'm not going to fuck you out here, Andreas. What will MMA Plus be doing in the lead up?
We believe we've got a preview coming up. Obviously, we'll similar to you guys, will be live tweeting the event. So yeah, the same standard kind of thing. I won't call it standard. I think there's an element of concept that has to be put behind it. But yeah, what you'd expect for a journalistic website to do. We'll be covering the same as MMA Mad.
Absolutely, and check out the site. They have some brilliant videos on the site. Your video about being a journalist at an event, I really enjoyed the vlog, Andreas. I think you should keep doing them at the events. I feel that was really good. So yeah, check out the site. You wanna give your details now, Andreas?
Yeah, no. Firstly, I want to say thank you for having me on the show. Just to put this into perspective, for me to be asked to be a guest on, another show that's not the MMA Plus podcast is a huge honor for me. So thank you for having me on the show. It's been a privilege discussing mixed martial arts with both you guys. So, obviously Jim's already mentioned MMA Plus, but you can also check out my personal YouTube channel, Dre Knows MMA. Drey. I spell it weirdly. I don't know why. There must be a long backstory that I don't even know about that goes into that. But please check that out. Jim mentioned I did a backstage kind of vlog at BAMMA. I really enjoyed doing it, and I hope to do it again. Jim was actually going to feature in that, but the footage came out a bit grainy. It was originally, I was just testing the camera on you, Jim, but you were saying some pretty cool stuff, so that was unfortunate. But no, that if you guys check that kind of stuff out, then I really appreciate it. And as I said, thank you for having me on today's show.
Yeah,
well, I agree there. I think originally, or I don't know originally, but I think a couple of years ago, the mindset, specifically the podcast, was that everyone's kind of competing. Not even just MMA, just in general. I feel like that was the mindset, and then people sort of came around and realized, I don't think there's any shortage of internet users. I don't know about you. I listen to a bunch of podcasts. It's not like I pick one over the other. I listen to a bunch. So I think it's way better for everyone to cooperate and kind of collaborate on stuff like this. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for coming on, Andreas.
All the best, guys. Thank you very much.
So that wraps up the episode for this week. We will be back soon, hopefully with the guest that is a bouncer at Nick's bar that is fighting on the headline of the prelims of the British Invasion. But we will be back. Nick, can you plug all our shit? I know we've got at MMA Mad Official, which is our Twitter, and then you do the Facebook because I know you love it.
I'm pretty famous for mispronouncing our Facebook address, but I'm almost positive it's facebook.com/MMA Mad Official. Is that correct, Jim?
It is, yeah. So, no, actually, I think it's MMA Mad. I think you fucked it
up. No. Hold on. Let me look it up so we don't get it wrong.
No.
You gotta be getting this right, guys.
Yeah.
I think MMA Mad's the one. No. All right, you're throwing me off. It's facebook.com/MMA Mad Official.
Oh, it is.
You can't insult me for getting it right, because then you're gonna mess me up next time. So.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We hope to have you back as well, Andreas. If you come back in the future, that'd be brilliant.
Oh, definitely.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thanks to all the guys at MMA Mad. Dale for doing his thing, man. He keeps the site running along with Nick, writing articles every single day. Thanks for Cam, our editor on the podcast. We will see you next time. I've been Jim.
And quick plug, I believe this is going to be our highest traffic month yet, and obviously February being the shortest month. Thank you guys so much for reading our stuff. We're trying to keep growing this and improving and providing the best content for you guys. So the fact that this is going to be our biggest month and the shortest month of the year, I just personally I appreciate that so much. It's kind of boring writing articles that no one reads. So the fact that you guys are checking it out and continue to come to the site, I really appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Can I just quickly say as well, Jim, I met you and Dale at BAMMA, and straight away, both you guys absolutely fantastic. MMA Mad, what all of you are doing is, a testament to journalism, blogging, whatever you want to call it. Everyone calls it something different, but I feel we need more guys like what you guys are doing here in the world of MMA. We all dream to be that guy on MMA Junkie or MMA Fighting, but with what we do and the passion we put in for the little reward, I think you guys are absolutely excellent.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and I think it's great that we can all work together. You know what I mean? Because as I say, that's what people want to listen to. No one wants to listen to. It's not work. People go to work every single day and they hear all the corporate bullshit and people are better than each other. People just want to come home, chill, and listen to people's views on MMA, and that's all that really matters, in my opinion.
100%.
But yeah, thanks very much, guys. We'll see you next time.